Stay tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and this was supposed to be Mama's Boy. Okay, and in a way it still is, but what happened to me today was I cut a whole video describing the last week or so of me wandering around the hospitals again, taking my notes and observations. Here I am by the University of Maryland Medical Center again, and this is that tent I explored. And, some other observations and findings that I've made along Baltimore. And so I made this whole video ending with my experience at Johns Hopkins, which happened on Wednesday. All right? And here's that, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. And so I cut the video. I was happy enough with it to do the editing and so forth, but I decided to take a little break before I started editing, and it was just at the time that Governor Larry Hogan was having a new press conference today. All right, and so here it is. And so I watched the press conference, and this happens whenever I watch either a Trump or Hogan press conference these days.
Well, I get pissed. God damn it, I get pissed.
And it's true. Oh my God, these press conferences infuriate me so much. All right, especially this bit here in today's. And now, before this point, they're talking about how they're going to keep the schools closed at least through May 15th.
Tracing operation.
So I had an editing snafu, and I have to punch this in here. So this is what really kind of set me off. This is the 4-step plan that they announced today.
The recovery plan that we have been developing over many weeks has 4 building blocks that must be solidly in place before the lifting of restrictions.
Only the 4th one is important here, so hold on.
And 4th, a robust contact tracing operation.
A robust contact tracing organization, and that's what they want in place before they start lifting these restrictions. And that's what they're going to get. All right? And so
Well, I get pissed. God damn it, I get pissed.
it just sickens me, the way this thing is going. And now, so when I heard that it was 425 deaths, and I'm thinking, okay, it's been a month and a half of this at least already, 425 deaths. What are the other death totals in Maryland? What can I find out? All right, and so through a search, I couldn't find anything. Cancer was the only one I could find a statistic on for 2020. All right, and so they have an estimate of new cases 2020 at 35,000. Right, and estimated deaths for 2020 at almost 11,000, 10,790. All right. And so I had to go looking. I was like, this information has to be out there. And of course, in your search, it's just buried under coronavirus stats. That's all they want you to see is the COVID stats. So scrolling through, I don't know what page, 6, 7, 8 of the Google search, they had the CDC stats for the state of Maryland that go up to 2017. So, all right, well, I'll look at those and I'll try to use these as a baseline. An average, something that maybe we can expect to see in 2020, right? And especially when I see this, that their death cancer rates in 2017 was 10,796, right? And what's their estimate for 2020? 10,790, within 6. They have that estimate. That is unbelievable. That is consistency. Right? So for heart disease, we can look at almost 12,000. Cancer, there we go again. From a stroke, 3,000. Just over 2,000 for accidents, 2,000 for chronic lower respiratory disease, and down the line we go. And now we're at 425 for corona, for COVID. And so you stretch that thing out, maybe at worst, with any, depending on how they want to rig the numbers, because that's what they do. I think we'd be seeing a downturn in numbers in Maryland if they didn't count everything as COVID. Any symptoms they have is COVID. The testing is not good. You can do research and see that these tests aren't what they're supposed to be, and their level of accuracy is not what they're supposed to be. Firearm deaths, 742. Homicide, 587. 330 of this, comes from Baltimore alone. Right? So really, they want us to give up so much of our freedoms, and they've taken away the economy. They've blown up life as we know it. And, in the face of this pandemic, which really doesn't affect the population in a way that's consistent with this type of reaction, or should be consistent with this type of reaction, I guess I want to say. It is unbelievable, unless, of course, this is something that's all been in place anyway. Trump has stepped down and we're not working under a constitutional government anymore, and I I don't think we've been working under a constitutional government, maybe even since World War II. It could go that far back. Especially seeing the way, personal freedoms have deteriorated over that time. Seeing the way that society has changed in that time. It's really unbelievable that they're allowing this to happen and that we're going to allow it to happen. What are we going to do? That's what it's going to be. And they have this, tracing organization, this COVID tracing program. That's what they need to happen before they start opening everything up. And there's going to be the mandatory vaccines, and it's all coming that way, But one thing about this, and again, this is what he talks about, how they want to see this downturn and how we need to be ready and make sure that, the state is ready for this surge that's coming. And that's, what I've been doing, going around and looking at all this stuff. And so I was up at Hopkins on Wednesday, 2 days ago this week. And now my wife and a friend of hers had made headbands and little bits of fabric that have buttons in them. So nurses and hospital staff can attach their masks like this to these headbands and stuff, so they don't have to go behind the ears. Right? And so I was headed up to Hopkins to deliver these. Not only was, a worthy thing to do, because these nurses are suffering. And so it was something I was glad to do, and it also gave me a good excuse to go wander around here on foot and see what I could see. And so as I approached Hopkins, and this is Hopkins here, this is the old building, right? I was coming up on, this is Broadway, coming up north on it from here. And here it is. And I was going to do a circuit around, and so I do have some pictures of that I'll show. Right, and here I am coming up on it. And now, this is the building as they have it, and as I showed here, this is it here. It runs in a north to south, because Broadway is north to south. And I want to show that the hospital itself, this building as they have it built in 1889. Okay, and now looking at these old maps the way I do, and this was going to be part of that fun with maps, right? First looking at the 1851 map, right, in this neighborhood, and here's that point, that Star Point or Ray or whatever, right? This is Hopkins, where Hopkins is. This is where the Women's Breast Center would be. This is where the Kennedy Krieger Children's Center is, and this is the hospital block. All right, there it is. It's got a Baptist cemetery and a German Lutheran cemetery, and the German Lutheran cemetery is across the street a little bit as well. All right, big hospital there, right where Hopkins is. But we know Johns Hopkins doesn't die until I think the late 1870s or whatever, and he leaves it in his will to have this hospital built, or his hospital rather, Johns Hopkins. And so looking at the other early maps, next one back, 1836, same location, hospital still there. Going back even further, now 1836, this is probably around the time that Johns Hopkins was president of the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. But don't quote me on that. It seems right. Bringing it back further to the 1822 map. Here it is. And I love how in this map it's like in the middle of nowhere. But here it is. And it runs just as it does in 1851 and 1836. It runs east to west. And it's a really big building. And now, the great thing about this 1822 map, and it's something that I'm going to explore more as we go forward, and Baltimore being Monument City the way it is, the border of this map has all the major Baltimore landmarks on it. All right, and sure enough, right up here, it's got the hospital. All right, and it says, enlarged by donations from the state of Maryland at a cost of $140,000. Right, this is 1822. And so you figure, maybe the additions were done between 1820 and 1822 or so for it to be mentioned this way. Relatively recent, these add-ons, so perhaps the central building has been there for a while. Right? And $140,000, by the way, would be about $3.5 million today. And $3.5 million in 1820 is an awful lot of money. Right? But one thing I want to focus on here is this tower and this front of this building here, and these photos as I approach Johns Hopkins. Okay, and so now this is the front of the old Johns Hopkins building. And so I just want to focus on this area right here. All right, and we see the pointed front and the dome and the tower the way it is, even the weather vane, right? So when I look at it on the 1822 map, we have that same sort of pointed front in front of a tower, weather vane. I'm beginning to wonder if perhaps the center part of Johns Hopkins here, that the building that now runs north to south, was actually the same building that ran east to west, and this center part is the same. I don't know. That's just something that makes me, for whatever reason, I'm beginning to think that. But anyway, so as I was approaching with the package to deliver, and as I was going to case the joint, I was going to walk around the whole thing and see what I could take in. I'm coming up Broadway here, and I'm walking by this building that I'm going to focus in on a little bit. I still don't actually know what this building is, but you can see here a little bit. I'll try to get closer. If I go too close, it's going to drop me to the street level. There is a trench here, right? And so now I didn't appreciate that as I was approaching, coming up Broadway, and I'm just walking, and I'm in my head a little bit about where I'm going to go and whether I should be taking a lot of pictures and video, because I have been taking pictures, but not as much as I used to, because again, there's nothing happening. And the further along we go with these things, and the ordinance are getting more stricter, I'm trying to draw a little less attention to myself if possible, but failing miserably at it. But I am approaching this way, and as I get to this point, I hear a loud clamor. There's like a saw or an electric drill or something. It really kind of shocked me and snapped me out of my head a little bit. And I look down, and I'm next to like this railing or whatever. And I look down, and sure enough, there's a work crew down here on top of these grates. Right? And so I asked them how far down they are, and I'm going to tell this story later, as a matter of fact. But I hear these workmen in this trench on the side of this very modern-looking building. All right, and so now I'm walking around Hopkins this way, and this is the thing about it. There's vehicles here that I'm going to take some pictures of right in this promenade here, or whatever this would be called. All right, coming in on it. Where's the like up here? This is that glass pyramid. So there's some trucks here for this photo or whatever. I don't know what they are today or what they are in this, but this is what's there on Wednesday anyway. This ABT, and we're going to look at them in a minute. But I want to mention, I'm not getting harassed at all, and I am stopping, I'm taking pictures, and I'm awkward as it is as a pedestrian at my best days. And no one, I do see security people, they're there, but they're not bothering me at all. And it's interesting when I think about, the videos that are being posted of people getting harassed. I'm not getting harassed at all. And so as I'm walking along this side here, I come to these windows that I focused on in the Hopkins Lost video, and also in the here right near with those ABT vans, where you can actually see this is in that administrative section of Hopkins, and you can see the tent is open. All right, but I'm walking around Hopkins, I'm casing the joint, as I'm saying. All right, here's another view of it. Nobody around really. And I come to these, right, and this is steel grating. You have windows here that clearly go much deeper than this. Right, and they have like grating on it. And so I just hop up on these railings, and I try to reach over and see how far I can extend my arm and my camera to see if I can get a shot. It's just amazing that they just, I don't know how to, express that, I didn't do a very good job at the end here, but this is the tail end. So it goes from where those windows were at the front all the way down. The windows are now completely under here. All right, continuing my walk around, there's some shuttle buses there. Some of them completely unmarked. And here I am coming in now on this side into the emergency room of Hopkins. I've done a circuit. And I go in here, and the best part is I'm so awkward, I take a picture of the box. Little did I know the picture I was going to take of the box would come out so terrible. Here it is. It says nurses and staff. All right, but when I'm standing here when I take that picture, I look up right directly above me is a security camera. And as I get out, a security guard hops out of one of these vans, and I'm like, oh God, they're going to detain me. They think I'm some sort of weird terrorist with a bomb or something. Because there is a designated drop-off I'm supposed to be going to, and I'm ignoring that altogether because I want to go in to the emergency room. And so I go in, and there's a gaggle of nurses, right? A triage and a female security guard. And I said, listen, I have this box. It's headbands and that have buttons on them for you guys to wear behind your ears, so you don't have to attach your masks to your ears. And there was like 6 or 8 nurses at this triage station, and they looked like they were ready for any sort of action. and what I could look around, I couldn't see that much. And again, I would have to be really obvious about it, and I tried not to be. but I didn't really see a whole lot going on in there. They were happy to see me, and they were super appreciative of everything. It was a great experience, and and I got to thank them for what they were doing, and because again, I'm not placing any judgments on any of this stuff. I'm an observer and taking notes, kind of thing. And so after that, I walk back around, and I do this sort of same circuit in reverse, and I can see these grates at this building, and now what that is the building ahead, or where I saw those workmen down here. This building. And so what this building is, and it has these over some of the windows, and there's no lettering or anything to identify what this may be, but I think it's interesting. It does have like a very sort of reminiscent of a coffin shape. This is clearly ribbon, but to me it almost looks like film. What this building is the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And now this is where, of course, psychological warfare, at least American psychological warfare, is born out of here. Right? And I want to keep in mind that the Paul Linebarger, where did he come from? Southeast Asia. And where was his special? China. And what's happening now with Wuhan and China and all this? It's all tying in through Hopkins, which is, of course, part of, the Event 201 or whatever all that was. And, where's COVID coming out of China? Who's taking over? Who's looking like the superpower now? China. Could this stuff been put in place going that far back? Like I said, Linebarger's father was there in the 1920s with the king of China and the emperor or whatever. All right, so I'm looking, this is the Bloomberg School of Public Health that it has, and again, it's a more modern looking building, like it was recently redone, but it does have these sort of grates on it to show that there are, like, this is windows here. And again, I'm not doing such a great job, but in another example, I'm climbing over like a fence to like stick my camera down and see the bottom, because the landscaping is kind of strange. Like we're sloping downhill, like the old hospital is on high ground, and this is getting carved away. The landscaping is carving it away and getting lower and lower. And like in between here, and this is the courtyard I'm trying to get, there's like a wall here and a fencing as I'm walking down. And I'm trying to get views of this landscaping, which is very strange. It just sort of drops a few feet, maybe even several feet down from the street level of Broadway here to these courtyards, right? And so as I continue to walk along, this is that first building where I saw the workmen working here. And so I did take a little video, and that's where I kind of tell the story of my conversation with the workmen. But just this is a good example of the wall and the drop off the courtyard. Now here we go. This is roughly sidewalk level, and you can see where the next level drops down. Right, there's grading there. All right, so here we go.
Hopkins. All right, that's the Bloomberg School of Public Health. I don't know what this modern-looking building is, but walking along here in front of Hopkins, all right, you can see that we have this nice deep grate that goes much deeper beyond that. All right, and then walking along the sidewalk here, that grate is significantly deeper than the one before, right? And it continues to go down. And now, as we get further down, I don't know if you can hear the sounds. There are workmen working, and I'm not going to show them. I did talk to them a little bit. I asked them how far to the bottom of this building, and they said from where they were is 15 feet. And they're on the other side of that wall. I'm not going to show them. See if you can see that wall there. All right, it drops down. Look, you can even see that concrete. I mean, that's new, that thing. It's new. So I asked him, he said from where he was about 15 feet. And I said, well, how far above you am I? And he said about 15 feet. So, you can figure at least, or approximately 30 feet from the sidewalk level where I'm standing to the bottom of this building. And I asked them so do you think this building goes any deeper? And the guy said no. I said, do you think that hospital across the street, which is behind all this foliage, you're not going to be able to see, but the old building back there, does it go this deep? And he said, he played coy. He said, what, the new hospital? I said, no, the old one. Because that's what I asked him about. And And he said no, but of course, I know that that's not correct, because I've been to the basement floor, and I was just talking with Mary about it. It goes very deep. Yeah.
And I just wanted you to pay attention. That was a landscaping truck on this site. So once again, Hopkins showing what's essential, that the upkeep of their grounds is essential during this pandemic.
Oh, and there they have those guys up there. I don't know if you can see them through the... Why not?
Okay, and so, I really was trying to be again, I say I'm climbing on stuff and everything, but I didn't want to stand in one place too long and be holding a camera and point out, because there is security along in here. And I did see security guards. Like I said, they just didn't bother me. Right? But you can see there, that's like somebody in a lab coat or Tyvek suit. I did see some of that. And again, with these modern phone cameras and everything, they push everything so far away. But to the naked eye, even my poor ones, you could see that they were in like hazmat type stuff, Tyvek and, that kind of thing. But this is in front of the administrative building again, not in front of the main entrance to Hopkins, not in front of the emergency room or anything like that. Administrative. So I think that's interesting.
That's what's happening up there. All right. Interesting. Very interesting.
Okay, and so I just want to show the workmen again here. This is 15 feet below sidewalk level. All right, you can see the hatch opening up, and it goes down about another 15 feet or about 30 feet to the bottom. And so now that's a modern building. And like I said, he said it opened in the 70s. All right, and it's this here. And so this is the Bloomberg Building of Health here, which is definitely an older looking building. All right, so, and again, it showed that it had those same type of grates in front of these, at sidewalk level as here. So it's, I gotta believe, safe to assume that this building at least goes another 30 feet down from the sidewalk level. And then we know there are tunnels, and they're no secret, there are tunnels under Johns Hopkins connecting these buildings. And they're pretty deep. So now the oldest map that I have is 1851. Neither of these buildings is there. They would be here. But just because they're not on this map doesn't mean they weren't there, And that's one thing that's one aspect of this I'm kind of looking at. But so that was my trip to Hopkins and everything. And I thought that was really kind of interesting. I just wanted to showcase these vans again, ABT. And so when I went looking for ABT, this is what I found, right? ABT Electronics. All right, Abbott Laboratories. All right, they're finishing down on the day. But what do? Abbott Labs is developing new coronavirus tests for mass screening in the U.S. I found this ABT Associates. Bold thinking to improve people's lives. All right? With equal measure of curiosity and rigor, our data-driven approach moves people from vulnerability to security every single day. Their COVID-19 blog has barbed wire and fences. It's unbelievable. All right? And then, lastly, it says on the side of the vans, WeManagePower.com. And so I searched that, and it brings me here to Concentric. All right, and what Concentric is, right? It's a forklift and backup power company. All right, so they provide backup generators, batteries, things of that nature. All right, and so I think it's kind of curious to see that in front of Hopkins, because, like, to me, Hopkins must have, good backup generators as a hospital, as a premier hospital, just in the case of emergency and things like that. And then, okay, so maybe now they have to bump things up because they're bringing in all these quote-unquote ventilation machines, maybe, the COVID testing equipment, maybe that needs more juice, who knows? But I don't know, seeing it now, with battery backups and stuff like this, it makes me wonder if maybe perhaps Hopkins could be preparing for a loss of power, and that, maybe those who are predicting EMP strike or loss of power or internet or that kind of thing, might be onto something. I don't know. That's kind of curious to me. Right? And so to cap this one off with the cherry, as I was saying, I've been having a couple of email conversations with a sub whose name is Buddy, and he sent me some photos and videos of hospitals in his area that had nothing going on in them, and I'm sorry I didn't share those, Buddy. And I do recommend, please share those with other channels who are looking for that type of information. You're better off, because your work, they might actually get seen, and that's true of this that you shared with me as well. But this really has me excited. And so he sent me an email detailing the things that he's found, taking a closer look at the image of COVID-19. And so I'm going to bring that up, right? And now in his email, he asked me to focus on the triangular patterns. And there's no coincidence that this sphere is covered in triangles or pyramids, right? But he wants me to see, he says that he thinks he sees an anthropomorphic shape in here. Someone sitting down and perhaps bringing their left arm around their face and coughing into the elbow. And he sees this as potential mockery on the overlords on their part. And sure enough, this is a favorite game of mine, to look at, clouds and trees and so forth and see if I can, catch faces, mountainsides and things like that, to see what I can see in them. And sure enough, I totally see it, right? Here's the head in a seated position. And this could be a left arm brought across, coughing into it. That could totally be mockery of the situation, mockery of the general public in here, right? And it's all over these. But he goes above and beyond that, and this is where it got super crazy, and this is where it becomes a real cherry for me. He puts this in his email. He puts this image in his email as an example of what I might like as a visual representation for what I might look for, or maybe to help me see the things in the red triangles. And now what this is Mama. And that's what the episode was originally, Mama's Boy. Baltimore Fats is a Mama's Boy. This is Mama. And now what Mama is, she's the seated woman of Çatalhöyük. And I mentioned that my masterpiece, my abandoned masterpiece, which has been making connections left, right, and center. And I'm glad I kind of held off on it now, because I needed these other things to sort of happen to keep it going. But she is the female deity of Çatalhöyük, right? So I've been looking at this image for weeks, and she's been a part of my story, and so it's unbelievable that he would send this to me as a reference point for COVID-19 and this image that has become ubiquitous with it, which is really unbelievable. I wanted to see if I could find, that's the image that's ubiquitous now. What does COVID-19 look like? Do they have any actual pictures from it? Like from an electron microscope or whatever? And it's the same story as Master of Reality, and the whole spectroscopy thing, right? I mean, whose leg do I have to hump to find an actual picture of the COVID-19 virus? Because these are all digital representations. These are all art. This is not a picture. I keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Is that a picture of COVID from an electron microscope? It certainly doesn't look anything like this. That's not a picture from an electron microscope. That looks like it could be a picture from an electron microscope, but that certainly doesn't look like this other image that they're posting. Where is, on a glass slide under a microscope photograph of COVID? There just isn't one here, I just keep scrolling and scrolling. I could scroll all day. Do I need to refine the search? Let's see. COVID-19. Let's go right to the nitty-gritty of it and do electron microscope. All right, so this is what they give me in my Google search engine for it. Now, that's corona under an electron microscope? I mean, if you're telling me that's what it is, got to take your word for it. I don't have an electron microscope. But this and this, is not this. All right? And this is the image. And you can anthropomorphize this. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. That definitely looks like it. So bravo to you, buddy. And I know you have further theories about what this all means, tying it into Revelations and things like that. But that's not part of, my journey, at least not yet. And so again, I encourage you to share this far and wide, especially with channels that focus on that aspect of it. But please keep sharing your ideas with me. This was great. Absolutely fantastic, especially because it ties into Çatalhöyük and what that episode was. And I'll give you the title of it. It was called Neolithically Delicious. Where is she? There's Mama. Oh, Mama. All right, so I'm gonna wrap this one up. I gotta edit it down, see what I got from it. I hope you guys had fun with this one. I had a blast bringing it to you, you know. And this is what happens when.
I get pissed. God damn it, I get pissed.
All right, till the next one. Cheers, guys.